I want to tell you about a night in Arizona desert. I was young, 18 years old. I had been reading Carlos Castaneda, the books about Don Juan, the Yaqui shaman who taught a UCLA anthropologist that reality is not what we think it is. And Don Juan described a technique. He called it the gate of power. Basically, you run in complete darkness, knees high up, fast as you can, through desert terrain, rocks, dry brush, cactus, without a flashlight, without slowing down. Don Juan's teaching was this: when you stop relying on your eyes, when the analytical mind admits it cannot control the situation, something else takes over. The body navigates by a different kind of awareness. The body knows where the cactus is before the eyes could ever see it. I tried it with my friend Brian. We were 18 years old, in the best shape of our lives. We were just outside Phoenix, in the desert where you cannot see the city light. We ran fast, in the dark, knees high up, heart going. I could not see a thing on the ground. We ran for a few minutes. We didn't fall. I didn't hit a single plant. That night in the Arizona desert was the first time I really felt, that there was a layer of human experience beneath conscious thought that was mystical and powerful. It was real. It was intelligent. Those experiences, and there were few, shaped everything that came after, and everything I'm going to share with you today. I'm Dr. Slobodan Nešović, a licensed clinical psychologist and a founder of Psycho-Enalysis, and someone who has spent over 24 years living inside the questions. What is human consciousness? What are the ins and outs of human psyche? And most importantly, how do we work with it to heal? This video is the second in the CIIS workshop series, and it's different than the first one. In the first video, I taught you specific tools: breathwork, sleep, movement, EFT, and a minute of silence. In this video, I want to take you somewhere else. I want to take you through a small part of my own story. Not because it's particularly dramatic, but because most of the concepts I'm about to teach you came as a lived experience, before I had the clinical language for it. That's how real understanding usually comes, not from a textbook, from a night in the desert, from a scientist in a UCLA lab, from a committee of professors who failed me twice for using an approach that 10 years later became evidence-based therapy, and from a hilltop in Serbia, where I finally understood what I have been building towards for 10 years prior. Let's go back to the beginning. I grew up in Yugoslavia, a country where, in my teenage years, the political ground was hard. The economy was in the dumps. That kind of early instability does something to a person. It makes you search, not for comfort necessarily, for meaning, for opportunities. I found it first in books: Plato, Aristotle, Hermann Hesse, and Carlos Castaneda, the series of books about Don Juan Matus, a Yaqui shaman in Mexico, and his apprentice. Whatever your opinion of Castaneda's work, an academic debate about it continues to this day, the phenomenology he describes is informative. The internal experiences he documents match what mystics and energy workers across dozens of traditions have reported for centuries. And Don Juan had very specific ideas about energy. He said the human being is not just a physical body. We are, in his words, luminous eggs, fields of energy that extend beyond the skin, that perceive and interact with the environment in ways the rational mind cannot process. The gate of power was not a party trick. It was an exercise in shifting from rational I-dominated consciousness into what he called body knowing, a state where the energy field of the body leads rather than follows. When I ran through that desert at night and didn't fall, I understood for the first time that something was navigating that wasn't my brain. Now, I want to be precise, because this is a good teaching moment. What was navigating? Contemporary science offers us a beautiful answer to that question. The body's peripheral nervous system processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second, and conscious mind processes about 50. 50 out of 11 million. The vast majority of what the body knows, what it senses, what it responds to, what it navigates, happens completely outside of conscious awareness. This is not mysticism, this is neuroscience. Energy psychology begins with this premise. The body is an information system, a bioenergy system. And most of the healing and holding, and yes, the running in the dark, is happening in layers beneath conscious thought. When we learn to work with those layers directly rather than only through the thinking mind, something remarkable becomes possible. Those desert nights planted a seed. And the next chapter of the story is where it started to grow roots. I came to UCLA to study psychology. I came with questions that my professors found unusual. I was interested in the human energy, in the field beyond the body, in the kinds of experiences that Castaneda described, that mystics described, that the great spiritual traditions described. I wanted to know, is any of this real? Is any of it measurable? So I did what any slightly obsessed 20-year-old would do. I founded an official student organization. I called it the Higher Energy Healing Society. I registered it officially with the university, and then I gave my first lecture in 2003 in Dodd Hall of UCLA. I was 20-something, talking about what I learned in Europe about human energy structure at UCLA. And in that first lecture, in the audience was Dr. Hunt. For those who don't know her, Dr. Valerie Hunt was a professor of physiological sciences at UCLA for 40 years. She retired as professor emeritus, and she was, by any objective measure, one of the most important scientists of the 20th century that most people have never heard of. Here is what she did. She was the first scientist in the world to measure the human energy field, that many traditions call the aura, what science calls the biofield. She did it in a controlled lab setting. She used electromyographic instruments, EMG sensors, the same technology developed by NASA to monitor astronauts. She attached these sensors to the surface of the body and measured the electromagnetic frequencies emanating from it. Then she ran those measurements through Fourier transform analysis and voice spectrogram technology. What she found was consistent, reproducible frequency patterns unique to each individual. But here is the finding that changes everything. Dr. Hunt discovered that changes in the human energy field occur before measurable physical or mental disease appears. Let me say that again, because this is the most important aspect of energy psychology. The energy field shifts first. The body follows. The field is not a byproduct of health or illness. It is a precursor to it. She concluded, and I'm paraphrasing her directly here, that the mind is a field of information and it is the true source of all health problems. She also developed the aura meter, an instrument capable of measuring human electromagnetic frequencies up to 250,000 hertz. Standard medical equipment at the time maxed out at a fraction of that. She later found something else extraordinary. The distinct frequency signatures her instruments were picking up, the specific locations on the body where they were strongest, corresponded precisely to the anatomical locations of the traditional chakra system described in Eastern medicine for over 5,000 years. She didn't set out to prove chakras existed. Her instruments simply kept finding them. So when people ask me, is energy psychology real science or is it spiritual belief? I tell them about Dr. Valerie Hunt. I tell them what was measured in a lab at UCLA with NASA instruments. The energy field is real. It was there before the diagnosis. It can be worked directly with. And that is the foundation on which psychoanalysis energy psych method is built. Now, here is where my personal story takes a turn. Because knowing this, having met Dr. Hunt, having spent years studying energy psychology, I carried this knowledge into my doctoral program. And what happened next was one of the most clarifying experiences of my career. I did my doctoral degree at CIIS in San Francisco from 2005 to 2011, a school specifically designed for integrative body-mind-spirit psychology. I chose it intentionally. And for part of my qualifying exam in 2007, I focused on a technique called thought-field therapy, TFT, developed by psychologist Roger Callahan. TFT is one of the original energy psychology methods. Like EFT, which is taught in the first video, it works by tapping on specific meridian points on the body while holding a problem in mind. But TFT uses precise, algorithmically sequenced tapping protocol specific to each type of psychological problem. I used it in my original paper and applied it to a population that needed it urgently: war trauma survivors. And there was, and still is, a remarkable piece of research that informed my work. Like in 2000, 1 year after Kosovo War of 1999, a team of clinicians from Sweden, the UK, and the United States traveled to remote villages in Serbia, Kosovo. They worked with 105 patients. Between them, these patients carried 249 separate traumatic events: rape, violence, the death of family members, displacement. The researchers used thought-field therapy. 103 out of 105 patients, that is 98%, reported complete relief from their trauma symptoms. 247 out of 249 separate traumas resolved. 0 relapses after 5-month follow-up. This is a peer-reviewed published study. It is listed on PubMed right now. It is cited by ACEP, the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology, the leading professional body in this field. 98% war trauma, no relapses at 5 months. I used this information in my qualifying exam paper. My committee, 3 professors, failed me. They gave me 1, 1, and a 5. 5 is the best, 1 is total failure. I fixed all their suggestions, mainly formatting, APA style. They failed me again, the second time. If I failed the third time, I would be out of the program. Then I realized that it is not formatting in APA style, it is something else. I changed the intervention from TFT to CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, the institutional gold standard, and they passed me. I want to be clear. I don't tell this story with resentment. I completed the degree, I followed the process, my professors were not malicious, they were operating within the boundaries of what their institutions recognize as legitimate. But I understood then that the history of science as practiced by Tesla is the history of knowledge that institutions weren't ready for. And I understood something else. I was not going to stop learning about every energy psychology method I could find. And eventually, I was going to practice my own approach. So let me do something now that most psychology videos leave out. Let me give you a taste of what energy psychology landscape, the methods that are actually out there, what makes each of them distinct, and what they share. Because energy psychology is not one technique. It is a family of approaches, all working with the same premise that Dr. Hunt's instruments confirmed. The body is an energy field, and that field can be directly, intentionally influenced.